no matter who he chose, would be heartbreaking, and that is a testament to the writers.
Interesting.
You think it's inevitable that a character is doing something, and then you realize at the last second that they are actually this other person and is making the more natural but somewhat surprising emotional choice.
Welcome back to the Breakroom. Has this finale wiles? Perhaps the most of its flock. That's right, it's time to discuss the season 2 finale of Severance, Cold Harbor. I'm John Costa, and joining me to answer all of your questions, it's Erik Voss.
Hi, everybody. Let's get into it. I'm so excited to talk about this finale.
Here we go. Gina Ippolito is also here.
Everyone should meet me at the equator.
Oh my gosh, big building.
I forgot about that already. That broke my heart.
They know 3 locations.
We destroyed Evan 10 seconds in.
Europe, Zimbabwe, and the equator.
Also Delaware. Hi, we're in Delaware.
Also Delaware, that's right. We've got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. Did this finale stick the landing?
Ooh.
For some of us it did, for some of us, I don't know. Did we really get the answer to what Cold Harbor is? It wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And what is season 3 gonna look like? We're gonna get into all of that and more, but first, we have some fun stuff to get into. We finally have put out some really fun Severance merch. We've got some Lumen MDR shirts on here. They didn't send me one. Rude. Thank you.
John can wear a women's
We've got a
size
whole bunch more stuff on the website. We've got mouse pads for the Cold Harbor file. We've got
to get a hang in there.
We've got Dylan hanging in there. We've got tote bags. We really went crazy here at the end because we were having so much fun. We just
I want all of it.
I want that tote bag. I want that tote.
It's been an absolute blast. We also have been saving our last, we have 4% more of our Severance vending machine boxes to open.
Ooh.
So we're gonna open our last box. Here we go.
This is such a big moment. We've been building up to this all season.
We've seen some of the other stuff we've seen. Candle, like the one that was in
Soy candle.
This is auditory pleasure for an organized dance experience. A little more relevant after the finale, perhaps.
Relevant. I'm glad we saved it until the end.
Can we get a little drum roll?
Let's go.
Oh yeah.
Whoa!
After John gave them so much crap last week for not including earbuds.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
They included earbuds.
Okay, can I say this? I just ran my AirPods through the wash this weekend.
This is crazy.
I'm not gonna lay claim to these AirPods, but if we're giving them out, I wouldn't be opposed
John,
to taking them home.
we have to sever the AirPods. Everyone in the office gets 118.
We get, and then afterwards I was like, why would they give us free? And so you can say, we did not know these were in here.
We did not.
We did.
So saved it until the end.
Look, the amount of accusations we've gotten from anti-Disney, people say Disney gives you guys free shit all the time. What they give us
no
are
one has given us anything as good as AirPods.
And all of our Severance coverage is in the can. I didn't know that we had this. Maybe if I knew that we had this before I wrote the breakdown, I might have been even sunnier in my praise of it. So
praise Tim Apple.
I was completely severed in my coverage of writing. My Outie knew that we had this. My Innie did not. So thanks, Apple. Either way,
I really thought this was going to be like a disco ball, a mini disco ball.
Or like a miniature trombone or something. We did not open this in advance. We had no idea, which was why John was so angry last
I wasn't
week.
necessarily angry. I was confused.
John was like, screw this place. And Erik was like, you're an idiot. Why would you think that?
He had a
Tim Cook and
Yeah. And then I punched Erik very quickly in the nose like Drummond did to Mark Scout. Also, this is fun. We've been talking about season 3 and kind of a season 4 in the past. Ben Stiller has sort of alluded to this, but Apple finally confirmed that there's going to be a season 3 of Severance. And I believe it's They're trying to fast track it.
I think they said that they've already been writing scripts.
I don't think it's going to come out next year necessarily. I think it could.
I think it could. I think keep in mind that this season was affected by the strikes, multiple strikes. So that's why like people are thinking like, oh, we got to wait another 3 years. But that was an unprecedented 3 years. That was everything was crazy.
Yeah, but now they have to wait for the goats to grow up. So
That's true.
It's going to be a long wait.
Got to give them some of that super milk.
Yeah, Gina, you have written on TV shows before. We know in the heyday of television, it used to be a new season could come out every year. A new season, 22 episodes.
Yeah.
Come out. And what
Every
they do
fall.
is they continue writing while they start shooting episode 1. They're maybe on episode 6 or episode 7 of the season. Do you think, like, say if Dan Erickson, if you're watching, if Dan Erickson could finish the scripts, or at least outlining the scripts by mid-April, could they start shooting in summertime and fall and start releasing new episodes in January of 26?
Yeah, so I think the way that shows that I've worked on have worked is you sort of hammer out the first few scripts and then start shooting. Like you don't wait until it's all written. You'll write episodes 1, 2, and 3 over like a 2-month period, which is like a pre-production room. Then it goes into production, and like half the writers are writing, half the writers are on set. So I would say if Dan Erickson even has 2 episodes written, they could theoretically start shooting right away. Like if he's already gotten the okay, if he's gotten the okay for those first 2 episodes, they could start shooting and then be writing while they're shooting.
None of us here are line producers, which are kind of the people who figure out how to structure how you're going to shoot a season of TV. I do think it, I'd be curious if like prestige TV changes how they can do that kind of thing, right? We had heard that they shot the opening of episode 1 of season 2, the hallway running sequence over the course of many, many months. So I don't know if you're concerned about kind of like how you're block shooting certain locations or whatever, and that means that they can't shoot like episode 1 in totality, for example, and then move on to episode 2. Maybe they have, I can imagine they shot these hallway sequences with Mark running around and the finale sequences of Mark running around the hallway.
They did the
at
cardio
the same
days
time,
on the same.
right?
They were like, let's get our cardio out of the way.
So it's possible they're shooting, episode 1 and episode 10 concurrently, and it's hard because you have to get all the scripts written at the same time. We don't totally know.
Wild times.
But who knows? Hopefully they can get us this season 3 a little bit quicker. There's also been a little online debate about the ending of this episode. Spoilers for the episode. If you're watching this, some folks think it's Helena in the hallway that is sort of like coaxing Mark back and encouraging him not to leave with Gemma.
Listen,
Helena, right? Yeah.
Listen,
Helena.
John, you can
I believe it's Helene.
That's what Mark. see, instead of that, that's what Mark should have said.
Should have said. Those people are stupid, I think.
Okay, that's.
Sorry, stupids. Sorry to offend you.
Sorry, stupids needs to be a shirt with Gina's face on it, like Mark's face on those signs.
But
there's no evidence.
There's no evidence other than like
no
there's been a
evidence
switcheroo
of that.
already. But actress Britt Lauer has come out and said it's Helly R at the end there. Not Helly.
I think the evidence is people just interpreting that look that she gives Gemma, which is like, got your man. But the way I read it was like, I'm so sorry, strange woman, but I'm taking this man who's my soulmate because I deserve him.
I did not see evil in it. I also know that some people online were like, oh, Helly doesn't get girl code. And it's like, she doesn't know that woman. She just knows that the man she's in love with is trying to choose between the two of them. And she doesn't owe Gemma anything. Like she knows nothing about their lives. 100% of her life is inside here with Mark. Of course she's gonna be like, yeah, I want my dude.
The happy ending of the show that will never happen is that there's like a house somewhere where like you have a week where your innies get to be with themselves and a week where the outies get to be with themselves, and then they switch off and you get a week on and a week off.
I mean, Dylan,
never gonna happen.
Innie Dylan would love that.
Never gonna happen.
Innie
Dylan would love that.
I mean, would you do that? Like maybe like you could schedule all your awkward, like your dentist appointment, DMV, like, and you just let your outie take over for a weekend or just for like maybe 2 or 3 days a month.
Well,
I'd be okay with that.
I mean, that is the Twilight Zone episode, right? Like 1 month out of the year, these mannequins get to live. So like 1 month out of the year, maybe they will give the Innies the ability to live for. I mean, I think that sucks. That's everyone's getting half a life there.
Yeah,
But that Innie who does do all those chores for you also gets to have a wild treat yourself weekend.
Yeah.
You know, like they get to go boating. Boating is just something that I think is treating yourself.
I
would not
love that
enjoy it.
Erik was
Erik's
like,
never
they're
been
gonna
on a
go
boat
wild.
I'm just
They're
thinking-
gonna go boating.
I'm watching Survivor right now, and it's like the reward challenges is Jeff Probst just going like, you're gonna go on a yacht. And I'm like, don't put me on a sailboat. Just give me a pizza and let me sit by myself and eat it. Like, that's the only reward I want.
My mind went to ketamine orgies.
Interesting that your mind went there. We're going to talk more about the implications of that final moment in a bit. But first, I want to ask, did this finale kind of stick the landing for you? I know, obviously, we had a lot of questions going in. It answered some of them still unanswered. Yeah. There's more show to come. I'm not so worried about not having all of the answers. How did you guys feel about the finale just off the dome?
Loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Loved it.
I thought it was like a perfect season finale. I think people went into it expecting like a series finale potentially, not knowing that there are future seasons of the show or thinking that there might be 3 years, but a season finale, and presumably we'll get this at least within 2 years, this third season. I'm completely satisfied because, you know, having just watched this show, both, you know, me as someone who's analyzing every scene of it, but also someone like my wife who just kind of watches it as a fan, we really only feel that we're owed answers on what's going to happen with Gemma, and that was the major narrative priority, and they did. They answered questions about what they're doing with her. We still have some questions about how she got down there and what the broader plan for the Lumen Company is for this process. But like specifically rescuing the Eurydice of the hell of the underworld here, they did it, and then they gave us a heartbreaking twist on it. Perfect. And they answered the question on the goats, and I think the goats is like the polar bear of the show. This white furred animal. What the hell are they doing? We got an answer on that, and we still have more questions. But I would be disappointed if they answered the biggest questions about what Jane Egan really wants out of this, what the whole history of Kier is. Those are big picture mysteries of the show. That is what is the island of Lost. And imagine if you got the answers of what is the island on Lost in season 2. You'd be ready for it to end.
Yeah, I will also say, like, the overwhelming response that I saw on social media was positive. Like, I didn't see any of the negativity. I've just heard of it, like, secondhand. This might just be because my feed is so curated to avoid buttholes, but, like...
Oh,
my
feed's curated to be served buttholes.
My feed is curated for the buttholes who have blue check marks.
Oh, God. That's the ninth circle of hell.
That Venn diagram is a circle, yeah.
But yeah, I've been seeing similar things on social
media.
media.
I think people dig it. I think if you're in this show, you're into it. I think if you're sort of like a naysayer that's like, I want more answers. I think you pieced out in season 1 probably.
But I also I've been trying to get better about this, specifically on the Breakroom, being on both sides of it. If I really love something and if you didn't really love it, I want to give room for you to kind of talk about that. I don't want to say you're wrong. You're wrong. Now Gina,
I don't
doesn't want to
care.
go there, and that's okay. But my thing is
care.
I want to hear what questions you still have. What do you need fulfilled?
Yeah,
Because I'm sure Dane Erickson wants to know too.
Well, I don't care about others.
Let's get into the episode and ask some of those questions, right? One of my favorite sequences from this episode, it almost felt like an episode of 2 parts, right? You have this great sequence with Mark, Innie Mark and Outie Mark talking to one another.
The Smeagol sequence.
The Smeagol sequence. So good. The dialogue was great. I want to shout out the editor of this episode.
Yeah.
The edit in that scene was incredible. And also the edit in the scene with choreography and merriment was very well done. I thought that was great.
What's the editor's name?
John Costa. It was me, baby. I've been a mole the whole time.
Wow.
I don't know the editor's name.
I really tried to be.
Eric, what is the editor's name in your opinion?
But I didn't shout them out.
I know. I was gonna also shout out the composer because the score was also great. And
Everything
long, and
everyone
no
deserves
idea
an
who
Emmy
they
for
are,
this
too.
episode.
Shout out
Even
editor Jeffrey Richmond.
There,
Wow.
Evan, producer Evan knows the answer.
Thank you, producer Evan. What a great scene. Even before that, though, where we get a couple of moments with Cobell that I think are really interesting. First of all, Innie Mark tells her about Irving's illustrations.
Yeah.
He goes like, oh, well, we know where this is because of Irving's drawing.
And she's
right?
like,
and she's
what?
surprised about that.
Yeah.
And so, some people were thinking maybe Irv was calling Cobell. And I saw some people in the finale being like, oh, I hope this isn't the end of Irv. There's no question in my mind we'll get Irving next season.
Yeah,
There's too many Irving mysteries that have been left unanswered, like who he's calling in the phone booth, like why he knows so much about the exports elevator, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He's definitely got to come back. But what was Cobell was the manager of the Severed Floor, so you would think that she would have a little bit of insight into Irving maybe knowing some of this information.
No. I think this was a very clear cut. In season 1, we see her watching Miss Casey and Innie Mark, and she's trying to figure out if anything is bleeding over, if anything, if they recognize each other, if their love can conquer this severance procedure. And, she's even told, is it Milchick that tells her, it's better that they don't remember each other. So she's testing her experiment. She's a scientist, and this is the testing phase. And so she was like, oh, yeah, I'm brilliant. My experiment works. So when Innie Mark is like, hey, Irving knows about that weird fucking hallway. And she was like, sorry, what's going on now?
I think that's exactly right? It seems like with Gemma, they wanted to create all of these Innie versions of her, and the final test was like, can we put you through your ultimate trauma and you not feel anything, right? And so having the bleed maybe tells us that Irving's severance procedure maybe happened in an earlier phase before they could do testing and kind of figure out
or as
how
Erik
to
said,
make
because he's
change.
creative and he's an artist when he dreams.
Or that.
It's this bleed over.
I also think it's really interesting that at the very end we get Innie Mark feeling nothing toward his wife. So his severed procedure has held up and he doesn't have any bleed over either, right?
That's what you took from that?
Yeah.
I think that's
absolutely.
a valid reading of it. And that's the
Interesting.
position Innie Mark was in at the beginning of the episode. This is someone you guys care about, but I don't really have a relationship with Miss Casey from work.
I don't think he's totally cold-hearted at the end though. I think he's just why would I choose another man's wife when I could have my own?
But that's what I mean to say is no Outie Mark is in Innie Mark in that moment. Because if there was, I think he would leave. Because, in earlier parts of this episode, Helly says something along the, she says it's me, or she's me.
I'm her.
I'm her,
yeah.
whatever it is.
Yeah.
Almost encouraging Innie Mark to finish the file because we can't be together because I'm Helena Egan. But then
she gives him permission.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think when she says meet me at the equator, that's what kind of incepted the idea of we'll do a Sleepless in Seattle type thing. I honestly think he would have gone through that door had Helly not rounded the corner.
Agreed.
Maybe.
Agreed.
I think given that option, he's oh, no option. But he almost went through and then he sensed her rounding the corner. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm not going to go through this door. But I think up until that point, he would have. But yeah, I think this was a fascinating moment. And I think it's perfectly emotionally justified for who Innie Mark is. It's not an act of selfishness. I think it was an act of selflessness for Helly. He didn't want to leave her behind. It was almost, I think it was Rose going down in the life raft of the Titanic and seeing Jack and not wanting to leave Jack behind. And if Jack had not been standing there, she would have gone down with her mom and the unsinkable Molly Brown in that life raft.
She would have been like, what was that guy's name?
Yeah, she moved on. But seeing your person meeting you there to say goodbye breaks your heart in that way that you can't.
I mean, to be honest, after that moment, I half expected Helly to push Mark through the door instead of having their kind of graduate moment, because she recognizes that, and again, maybe we're skipping ahead to the end here, but there's no life for them now. There really isn't.
I mean, that's why
I don't see a life for them.
No, me neither. That's why the ending is an homage to late 60s and early 70s film.
Right.
Because that was the period of hey, this is an ending, but the world is still terrible. It wasn't until the 80s when we were look at Schwarzenegger's gonna kill that predator. Those Red Dawn kids are gonna kill those Russians. The 80s was here is a clear-cut victory. Now profit. It's yeah, put on these sunglasses, see that there are aliens. Now we destroy the aliens and we chew some bubble gum and kick some ass. But the early 70s film was young filmmakers saying, hey, the world sucks, people are dying, everything is terrible, so we're gonna give you what you think is a victory at the end for a split second, and then the crushing weight of society is going to wash back in on you. It's the Planet of the Apes ending. It's like, yeah, look at this, I got a hot lady, she barely talks, she knows how to ride a horse behind me. Oh crap! Like, Statue of Liberty. You bastards.
Yeah, and you know,
oh my gosh, I was wrong. It was Earth all along.
While we get our kind of like Breakfast Club freeze frame, they do this kind of interesting thing where they shoot the show digitally, but something that more and more digital films have been doing lately is you shoot the thing digitally and then you do a film print and then you rescan the film so you get like authentic film grain. And so that's what they did for this final shot of the show. They just basically did like a film. It's not quite an emulation because they actually shot it on film, but like you get a ton more film grain in this image. And I think that kind of plays into your homage to a previous sort of era of filmmaking. Yeah.
I mean, when I saw that ending, the two movies that I put together were, excuse me, were The Graduate and Logan's Run. I was like, oh, the visual is Logan's Run, them holding hands. I realize these are also like, you know, movies that maybe a lot of our audience haven't seen. But it's like, hey, victory. Oh, wait, maybe not.
Right.
And to me, that's like perfect for a show whose whole aesthetic is set on like, it's weird. Is it the 60s? Is it the 70s? Is it present day? I feel dread, but also hope. It's very 70s.
One of the quirky things about the break room is that we love food, but it can be tough to eat well when you don't have the time to cook unless you use Factor. Factor has chef-made gourmet meals that make eating deliciously and eating well easy. They're dietitian approved and ready to heat and eat in 2 minutes. Factor can help you feel your best all day long with wholesome smoothies, breakfasts, grab-and-go snacks, and more add-ons. Factor arrives fresh and fully prepared, perfect for any active, busy lifestyle. With 40 options across 8 dietary preferences on the menu each week, it's easy to pick meals tailored to your goals. Choose from preferences like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. For instance, if you're trying to lose weight, you can lose up to 8 pounds in 8 weeks with Factor Keto meals. I had the veggie tomato risotto a few nights ago and it was really good. Molto bene. Just the perfect level of tomatoey bite with the risotto to sponge it up. It was so good and it was ready in 2 minutes. That's impulse speed. You have the impulse to eat, you got the speed to eat. Eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast and use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code FACTORPODCAST at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Tell them I sent ya.
Evan, we got a couple questions in the chat.
Yeah. While we're talking about the ending here, some questions and thoughts. Enthusiastics in the super chat, thanks so much. I think Innie Mark's hesitation was based less in Helly and Gemma and more in pure fear of his own annihilation.
Yeah.
There's
for
definitely
sure.
a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Definitely a part of that. Like he has this kind of like, this could be my last moment alive right now. I'm stepping off the cliff.
We got another one here. Lucas also asking, love the finale. Do we think the next season will have more of a focus on Gemma trying to get Mark out of there? Kind of like a flip on season 2.
Yeah,
Thank you for this.
So. I think the protagonists of the show are going to be Helly on the inside and Gemma on the outside. Gemma's going to be the Orpheus figure and Helly is going to be like the revolutionary from the inside.
Yeah.
Helly is the person in the Apple commercial throwing the thing into the Big Brother.
Right. Yeah, I think like I mean, do we want to talk about the ending or are we jumping the gun here?
You know what? That's, I think, the thing that's on everyone's mind. Why don't we get into it and then we can circle back to some other things later. You know, I think when I said I don't see a future for them, you're right? If Mark is standing at that door, understanding that this might be his last moment, if you are both Mark Outie and you are Helena Egan, you're never going back into that office. As soon as you're out, you're done.
Yeah. And Innie Mark is like, I can go with this strange lady or I can take one last trip to Pound Town and I know what I'm choosing. Weird Logan's Run and then a trip to Pound Town. Like, I just think, to me, like, this ending is so effective because like this show could have suffered from a How I Met Your Mother situation. Like we have gotten to know Helly, the badass Helly, who starts out this series being like, I'm not doing what you're saying. I'm gonna fight tooth and nail to get out of here. She's like, everyone loves her. She's a badass figure. And like we didn't know anything about Gemma other than she's like Miss Casey and says like 3 words and she seems sweet. And so they had one episode to basically be like, hey, she's also awesome in a specifically different way. And their relationship is special in a different way than his relationship from Helly is special. And like the economy of words when they introduce her donating blood. It's save the cat, but donate the blood instead.
Right.
It's like, oh look, she's selfless. And then she's also reading the death of Ivan Ilyich, one of the like most difficult tomes to get through, just like for the hell of it. And she's like, yeah, I'm like just reading this for fun. And then he says like, well, I'm reading a paper called All Quiet on the Western Front. And she, without missing a beat, is like, oh, that kid should get an A. And it's like, oh, she's got a sense of humor. She's selfless. She's extremely intelligent. And then he says, who are you? And like the whole audience is like, yeah, who is she? And so at the end of this series, like at the end of this season, no matter who he chose would be heartbreaking. And that is a testament to the writers.
Interesting.
Because I think there's always going to be ships, right? There's always going to be people shipping one or the other. But the key is to make it heartbreaking no matter who he chooses. If he went with Gemma, there's a moment of relief that he's back with his wife who he went through all this crap with. But then there's immediate sadness for Helly. If he goes with Helly, there's a moment of relief of like, oh, these sweet like baby children with baby brains are gonna go and fuck under a desk again or whatever. And then you feel bad for his wife who's been through hell. And I think that like this was so successful because you feel crushed no matter what the option is.
Definitely. And I think that's a testament of great writing is like you think it's inevitable that a character is doing something and then you realize at the last second that they are actually this other person and is making the more natural but somewhat surprising emotional choice. And to get that to that point is so hard to write a character's journey that way. And they pulled it off. Philip, I see your super chat saying, I'm just confused what Innie Mark thinks will happen now. Like normally he leaves every day at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
So what does he think? He's just going to live there with Helly? Or
I don't think
is
they're
Gemma-
thinking.
is Gemma actually-
They're not thinking. It's
yeah,
just instinct.
and it's an instinctual choice. And I could totally see a season 3 that is just stretching out that frantic last honeymoon as long as possible.
Yeah.
They have an army down there on the 7th floor. Didn't Helly whip up a marching band to fortify their position? It could be like basically an Innie hostage situation now where all these severed have unionized and they're like, fuck you, company. You try to come through this elevator, we're going to tackle and smother you with our instruments. Like, that could be a full season of the show while we intercut to things like an Imogen Kier flashback episode. Like, they could structure the whole season around just this extended honeymoon of these two. And it could just be like, you know, like a Richard Linklater before sunset type structure. And it's just in real time.
I mean, this whole season took place in like a month or something, like if that.
Both seasons.
Both seasons.
Yeah.
It's a very short period of time. So you're right. It could just be like, here's the 2 hours after they ran away.
And if you try to do OTC and reawaken my Outie or something like that, I have this loaded pistol and I know where this room is with a little dispenser for bullets. Like Helly had the slicer. Like these severed Innies are willing to do whatever it takes to cling to this honeymoon. And I'm just fascinated to see what they do.
I'll say that. I think it's really interesting that, you know, Mark S's perspective is like, you know, a life of torture is better than no life, which has not always been the case for all of the Innies, right? Like basically, Dylan wrote a suicide letter because he didn't want to continue a life without Gretchen, and he wanted to, quit working at Lumen. That's a suicide note, essentially.
Yeah.
He wants to be done, and so it's interesting to see these perspectives from all of the different Innies in terms of like, you know, what their priorities are and how valuable they feel their life is.
Yeah.
And that's a really interesting kind of like fun societal playground to play. Not fun, but you know what I mean.
Fascinating for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris T asking a question here from Twitch. Gemma's out of the building alone. Won't the security just catch her since she knows no way out? What do you guys think about that?
What security though?
She doesn't know no way. Oh, maybe she does not know a way out. That's
You
a good-
just
Again,
follow the
we don't know
stairs,
how
I
she
think.
got down there, but I bet you just go up those stairs
Yeah.
and you'll be out in the lobby or something like that. Yeah, we don't know how fortified the security is. It
Well,
seems
and
like it's
Drummond-
a one-man operation. With
Wait,
Drummond.
That's what I was gonna say earlier. It feels like the security at Lumen is like a defense
Yeah.
against the dark arts type of situation where every season we're just gonna get a new security person.
No, I think Devin has got the car running outside. I think
Devin's
she's
got-
like
yeah.
waiting there,
Right.
and she's
They
like,
had a
Smelly
plan.
car.
yeah. She's in the smelly car. She's thinking about her crappy.
Put her in
husband she should
the
have left 10 years ago.
bed of the trunk and put a tarp over her, and it works every time.
I think that's a good point because they did establish that Devin and Gemma had a relationship. They had a
Yeah.
friendship.
Oh, yeah.
She's
and then
invested
she misses
in
her.
this.
Yeah, she knows who she is. Gemma would recognize Devin. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's how she gets away.
Yeah, I think Gemma goes out and she's like, ugh, and Devin's like, get in the car. We'll worry about my stupid brother later.
Yeah.
So also one key part in the ending is when Gemma and Mark are running from the testing floor into the exports elevator. Maurer says, "You'll kill them all."
Yeah, Ben asked to put a super chat in asking what that means.
What
Thank you,
does?
Ben.
Yeah, it's a great question.
great
You know, there's a
question.
couple
We
ways
don't
you can
have any
interpret
idea.
it. Does that mean all of the Innies will die? All of Gemma's personalities?
Mm-hmm.
Does it mean that there was a moment in episode 7 where they sort of alluded to this changing the entire world? Is there
Yeah.
is there broader societal implications of that?
I think the first way to read it is for sure just about her innies. You know, like he is in love with at least some of those 25 innies, and he's just selfishly like, some of my dolls, you'll kill my dolls.
She still hasn't finished writing out her thank you notes.
Yeah, you'll kill them.
What of the grouter?
But I think the fact that it closes on him as he says you'll kill them all, I think we're also meant to read this in another way, that the fate of either the whole world or the fate of every employee at Lumen may be at stake. Lumen seems
is
to
that-
operate without any kind of legal scrutiny. Like,
Right.
they can do whatever they want
Right.
and kill whoever they want.
A lot of blood in that building. But the question I have then is like, is that just like this religious cult believing that the apocalypse won't come if Gemma escapes and that you'll kill everyone? Is that like real? Or is that just like cult behavior saying you'll kill them all because I believe in this weird thing?
Or maybe it's
good
a
question.
belief that their goal is to basically bottle immortality. So you're dooming everyone to a mortal death this way. You'll kill them all when
Right.
they die 50 years,
Right.
40 years from now. So there's a chance that we can give everyone eternal life. Wouldn't we want that? So you'll kill them all by not giving them a chance at immortality. Maybe that's one way to read it.
Yeah, Maurer's got so many different motivations. Like I've said this before, but he reminds me of Ethan from Lost, who was like sort of taking care of Claire when she was pregnant, and who was like, yeah, we're trying to like solve this infertility problem. Like Maurer is clearly in love with some of Gemma's innies, but he does seem to want to fix whatever this issue is that they are working on, that we don't learn what it is. So I think there's a broader implication than just Gemma's innies, because she was about 1 minute away from dying anyway. So he wouldn't be like, no, wait, bring her back or you'll kill her. Bring her back so I can kill her in 2 minutes. Like, I think it's something larger than that.
I got a secret. We're all about getting the best sleep possible here at the Breakroom, which is why we're stoked that Miracle Made is one of today's sponsors. The temperature you sleep at has a huge impact on the quality of your sleep. If you're constantly waking up because you're too hot or too cold, you gotta try Miracle Made sheets. Miracle Made's fabric was inspired by NASA, so it's also thermoregulating. That means you'll sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. Plus, these sheets are crazy comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands. Plus, Miracle Made sheets are infused with silver. That prevents bacterial growth. Bacteria can clog your pores, causing breakouts and acne, so sleeping on Miracle Made sheets is good for your skin too. Upgrade your sleep this year. Go to trymiracle.com/breakroom to try Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or as a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code BREAKROOM at checkout, you'll get a free 3-piece towel set and save an extra 20%. Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep with Miracle Made. Go to trymiracle.com/breakroom and use the code BREAKROOM to claim your free 3-piece towel set and save over 40%. Again, that's trymiracle.com/breakroom to treat yourself. Thank you, Miracle Made, for sponsoring this episode.
Well, and there's a question that Helly asks Mark when they're about to finish the Cold Harbor case that never gets an answer, because Mark kind of says like, I know what they're doing down there, and he doesn't really elaborate. But then Helly asks him So what happens when they extract the chip?
Yeah.
So clearly there was some kind of chip extraction play that was going to happen. I assume they're talking about Gemma in this instance, but we also get the moment where it seems like she's going to be sacrificed and buried with the goat that they're planning to.
Oh, I think that line was just about reintegration in general. Like, you extract the chip as part of reintegration. So he was telling her, like, yeah, my Outie was telling me about reintegration. It might be possible.
So you think that she was referring to Mark in that moment?
Yeah, I think she's just saying, like,
pronouns.
I think we were in the
didn't
middle
get-
of a conversation about reintegration. She goes, okay, so then they extract the chip. Then what happened? I think that was like Innie, Helly, like, ooh, what would happen if they could force that CEO heiress to be reintegrated? If I got a chance to be on the right hemisphere of her brain, I would basically force her to run into traffic.
Well, and it seems like Jame Egan would prefer Helly to be his successor than Helena to be his successor.
Yeah.
He says he doesn't love his daughter. He says he sees Kier in Helly. He also says he was trying to sire children so that they could potentially be one of his successors. We learn in the previous episode, Cobell says that Devin is one of James, implying that Jame has had a lot of children. Now we get this kind of insight that potentially he was just having a lot of sex so that he could find a new successor.
Or he was a millionaire paying lots of women.
Hey,
to
look, that too,
impregnate them.
that
Or
too, and he's
really
finding an
evil.
excuse or whatever.
He's just really evil.
My question is-
20-something women to be little wombs for his off.
Right, he comes out and says, I didn't see Kier in any of them.
Yeah.
What happened to those kids?
He's like, so I put them in a little sack and I dropped them in the water.
They're Moses down the
Smothered
river.
them.
One of them's just playing the tuba in that CNN.
Yeah, they're all in the
it.
merriment department.
Getting a lot of questions, a lot of on both platforms here. So let's run through some of these. Thank you. Fraz had also sent in a super chat similar to the last one. So thank you so much. Hassan Ahmad asking or opposing a theory: Cold Harbor, new chip where Innies with no personality ties to Outies, no emotion or memory, perfect obedience, goal, total control without rebellion. What do you guys think about that?
Ooh, I like that idea. I think they are trying to breed like a specific numb personality who just doesn't feel pain, like emotional pain or frustration or anything like that. And there's a lot of different applications for that. One of them being like the perfect employee. Yeah, I think already the severance procedure already does that. So I'm trying to think like they're trying to breed a personality that can walk the earth this way. And just like, because already the severed Innies still feel the pain, as we heard from PD. They just don't know what it is. What if you had a severed Innie that felt no pain?
But there's also an inherent flaw in this, right? Because it's basically like it's a tabula rasa situation where you're like, oh, they have no trauma, but like the second that they get trauma, then they're ruined in this scenario, which is like you can't wander the earth and not eventually encounter trauma.
Yeah, there's a reason why we have pain receptors, both emotional pain receptors and physical pain receptors. It's not a curse that whatever intelligent design or evolution, it's like that scar tissue forms our personalities and our identities and the way we navigate the world. Like, you're going to experience pain at some point in your life. You need it to survive.
Not me.
Not me. All right, so thank you to Tahir Fur and BX Quinn for sending in similar super chats about James' interaction with Helly. Tahir asking, do those words from James stick with Helly? And BX Quinn asking or saying, I think Helly's going to turn bad next season. Egan sees Kier in her and is going to hone in on that. Do you think he'll wage her life for Mark's?
Y'all just don't trust badass women. Silence from the peanut gallery. I don't think she's going to
I don't know how to
From the
respond to
peen
that.
gallery.
No, I agree. I don't think she's going to turn
I don't
bad.
think she's going to turn bad.
I think she's gonna be the hero of the show.
I think she so desperately doesn't want to be her Outie. I think she sees who she is, and we got what a terrible person she was. I don't think those words from James stick with her because she was basically just like, what the
She was ready to
fuck?
kill him.
Like,
The words she said was, I think, the most badass thing anyone on the show has said. You and your family created hell, and you're all going to burn in it. I think was the coolest thing anyone has said. I can't wait to see her execute on that.
I think she's a hero. I don't think I think that like of anyone, she's sort of the one that I would trust to get them all out of this. I mean, she's the one who is like, yeah, I'm gonna put Milchick in his place right now. Like, you go, you do your thing. I don't think she's turning bad.
Agreed.
Sure.
I also want to ask you guys, when James been weird on the severed floor, He's got this
Just
kind
on the
of-
severed floor?
well, he's been weird. He's been weird in a different way on the severed floor. He's got this kind of weird way of talking. It's so quiet. And then when he appears on the severed floor, we get an elevator ding, which in the past we had sort of thought that, Helena was Helena because, and not Helly because we didn't get that elevator ding when she was going up to the severed floor. But we do get it for Jame. Do you think that Jame could be severed in some way? And if so, why? I'll say this. I don't necessarily think that he's severed because he speaks to Helly as Helena's father, right? And talks about how, he doesn't love her and all this kind of stuff. That feels like it's coming from Jame Egan, the Outie, or if you want to say that. But like,
I don't think he's
was
severed.
that ding just to like, oh, someone's coming,
I think the ding happens no matter who's in the elevator. It's just the innies react to the ding in that specific way. Because I believe Milkshake, Cobell,
Still
we've
have
seen
a
other people go through the elevator, right? In season 1, I'd have to rewatch.
I think so.
I think the elevators just ding.
Yeah,
just for any time it opens.
Cobell and Milkshake, I'm pretty sure go through those.
Also, he has such an odd turn of phrase every time he speaks, and when he says, "I got so upset, I threw a tin of candy," I was like, "Someone stab this dude in the throat right now!" I don't want to hear, "I wish you'd take them raw." I don't want to hear "fed and mop it," and I don't want to hear "I threw a tin of candies." Stab that dude in the throat.
To me, more. I want to hear, just let this guy talk
Okay,
for a
that's
bit.
fair. That's fair.
I need to hear
know
how
what?
he
Oh,
uses
I take
words.
it back. Don't stab him in the throat.
Yeah, I think that's definitely Jame Egan. He had the memory from her funny speech during the party,
Yeah.
I definitely think that's him. But yeah, what a weirdo. I want to know, like, this observation room that he goes to watching Gemma go through the Cold Harbor dismantling crib experience. The elevator opens directly to this room. That's so weird. That's like a private suite. What are the 4 buttons for? What was he hoping to experience from this process? Something. If it was just observation, he would have joined Dr. Maurer in that other room. It had to be a private experience for him.
A private room with just one computer and 4 buttons. I can tell you what they do.
Porn?
Pornhub.
Porn?
1 button.
Porn?
Pornhub.
Porn.
Yeah.
I think it's 4 tempers, right?
it reminded me a
tempers,
little bit of
yeah.
like a confessional because he has this like photo of Kier Egan there, and it's sort of a sterile room.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think maybe just sort of more religious allegories here happening.
Yeah.
But you're right. It was kind of an interesting location.
Everything in the show.
Jumping back to Gemma and Cold Harbor, Sarah has joined on Twitch. Teresa Montoya sending in a super chat asking a very similar question. Sarah saying, wouldn't Gemma have more than 25 innies? Because it seems like she got a new innie for every file completed, but Dylan had a different name on his file. Teresa saying, if Mark was working on Gemma, what was everyone else in MDR working on?
That's
Other
a really good
people's
question.
severed personalities in general?
We have to assume that there are other individuals that beyond Gemma who are using that testing floor. But that's, I think, a fascinating question to explore in season 3. Because yes, Irving, Petey, Helly, Dylan, every other MDR employee was batching numbers with different file names or different Montauk. Like Montauk was one of Irving's file names, and that was not one of Helly's identities.
Dylan got that weird
Gemma's.
waffle party orgy dance thing last season because he reached 100%. So I don't think that each of them are necessarily like, oh, someone's so important to them, blah 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 blah. Because clearly they're sacrificing these people, and you would notice like if one of Dylan's kids went missing, he'd be like, hey, didn't I used to have 3 kids and now I finished a file and all of a sudden one of my kids is missing?
Yeah, I think they had random people. Would be my guess.
And that's why I think Mark was so special, because for the first time they were like, hey, what if instead of randos, it's like this woman that a beloved woman.
A cherished woman.
A cherished
Maybe that's
woman,
why
that's
he called
what
her
it
a
is,
cherished.
cherished
They
woman.
needed someone who would be cherished.
Yeah.
And that's why they could read her 4 tempers. For other people like Dylan, yes, he could complete 100%, but it's just not, he's not going to go the full distance of 25 files. And does it have to be 25? Was it just 25 for Gemma? Yeah, there's a lot we don't know. But I think both, as we saw how the severed floor had a whole other department of choreography and merriment, I believe that testing floor has more dimensions to it. And there may be multiple testing floors, or there may just be multiple apartments and different people who use these rooms in different combinations.
We haven't seen the people that make the food. I want to see the people that make the food.
The house elves of Lumen.
Yeah, I want to see them.
We did get that great shot of the vending machine food toppling out as it got pushed over by Milchick.
The snack department was like, no.
Before we get to some more of your questions, one of the other heartbreaking moments was Dylan getting the letter from his Outie.
Oh.
And I sobbed.
You thought that was heartbreaking?
I sobbed. You know what? The moment that
Wow.
pushed me over the edge was Dylan's Outie calling Dylan's Innie what does he say? A certifiable badass?
Yeah.
A self-assured badass, which is like the thing that any Dylan thought of Outie Dylan.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
oh my gosh, it is so, I don't know, that must have meant a lot to any Dylan to have been called that by someone that he previously had admired. And like, what a self-assuring moment for Innie Dylan. It like broke my heart a little bit that like
It was
he
very sweet.
I thought it was sweet. I found it sweet.
Yeah, I meant that it was very sweet, and I started
yeah,
crying.
It touched you. I think it was a
touching.
beautiful act of maturity and forgiveness by Outie Dylan to say, like, I get we're both physiologically sharing the same body. We would be attracted to the same woman. And to call her perfect, I think, which is so...
It's the first time
It was the first time Outie Dylan had been a good
that
guy.
He likes his wife at all.
Absolutely.
Because
She is
I was
perfect.
firmly anti.
Merritt Weaver is perfect.
I mean, I was like, she needs to dump him. Like, get rid of this guy that can't even cut cookies. Like, what's he doing? Like the whole season, I was, and then in one letter, I was like, you know what?
You're not
You
so
take-
bad.
You know
well,
what?
and you can
Take a
see,
second honeymoon, you
right?
two.
Like what Gretchen must have seen in Dylan when they were falling in love.
And also to leave Innie Dylan with the choice.
Yes.
Like the whole letter was sweet, and like just the fact that he starts it with like "Dear Outie," it like sounds like it's gonna be like a terrible letter. And he's like, first of all, fuck you. And I
Right.
was like, oh no. And
But
then
isn't
he's
that
like,
so
also,
Dylan?
yes, my wife is perfect. I see why you like her. Also, this is your decision. Like, I kind of like that you're in there and you're a badass, and maybe I'll someday be a badass too.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, like, look at this guy. He's gonna go home and he's gonna cut those cookies so well.
He's gonna try hard for a couple of months, and then he's gonna
Yeah,
backslide.
And then he's gonna go right back to
It's
his
gonna
old,
be a
and
problem
then
again.
And then Gretchen's gonna be like, I should have made out with his Innie some more.
Andrew McKee just sending a super chat earlier to echo those same sentiments. We have to shout out how great Zach Cherry was in his scenes during this episode, both as Outie and Innie Dylan, also coming in to save the day. Some great stuff.
Agreed, yeah. Should we talk about Cold Harbor? Like the Cold Harbor room, we got some confirmations on what it is.
Let's talk about it. That's really interesting. And one of the things that I thought was interesting, obviously, like the crib disassembly moment is probably more metaphorical than it is literal, because we saw Mark kind of being the one to disassemble the crib in episode 7 versus Gemma doing it in this episode. So, you know, I think a lot of us, she wears the clothes of the, you know, day that she goes out and we presume gets in a car accident and dies. That's somewhat unrelated to the room, right? Like, what did you guys take from this specific kind of white room disassemble the crib
I think it
thing?
was like max trauma. Like, I think, obviously dismantling the crib, like Gemma knew that was happening. She was downstairs, or she was sitting on the landing of the steps, and she heard Mark doing this, drunkenly doing this, and was crying. So that obviously is extremely triggering, probably her bottommost moment of trauma. Not just having to go through the miscarriage, but also just seeing the impact of that and seeing your marriage now struggling and seeing your life partner just like taking it horribly. And the I'll be seeing you was part of that equation. But I think it's worth noting that it was a little sloppy by Lumen to do it this way while having her wear the clothes of a different moment. I think Lumen was just trying to just throw every mean thing they could at her. And when Maurer got on the intercom, couldn't he have controlled Mark breaking into the room a little bit better? Like, he said, don't talk to that man. Don't talk to him. Like, he could have just been like, yes, what will you do now? You did this to your husband. Look, he's hurt himself. He's drunk.
Right.
Like, he could have theatrically yes-anded that. And he didn't.
He's not an improviser, Eric.
Well, that's right.
He could have done a better job. And if he were
everything-
better at his job, he could have.
Everything at Lumen feels so meticulously controlled. in the instance where a wrench gets thrown in the works, they're not prepared to handle that. You saw so many people calling out for Drummond, and he's dead in the elevator. That was maybe my favorite moment of this episode was the elevators trying to close on his legs the whole time, which I think honestly is a brilliant piece of writing.
Yeah.
It is like, sometimes you write yourself into a corner and you're like, how are Mark and Gemma going to be able to get into the elevator and all this kind of stuff? And it's like, oh, simple. Just have the guy's body block the elevator the whole time.
Have his blood on the tie.
Yes, also very good.
They used all parts of the Drummond. Yeah. And I love that. It was so practical in the scene construction. Yeah, I think Cold Harbor they were just sloppily trying to culminate all the trauma for this person just to see if any pain bled into the situation. And despite Gemma going in and out of these rooms, she feels some residual pain each time. This time, from what they could see, that Innie didn't have any of those pain from those past 24 experiences creep in.
But I think that what they were doing was taking her two most traumatic moments. I think her first most traumatic moment was Mark disassembling the crib, them agreeing that they are not going to try this anymore, and giving up on that dream. And the second most traumatic moment was when she was ripped away from Mark. And so that combines those. So she's wearing the outfit of when she last saw Mark, when she was and we don't know. We don't know if she did this willingly. We still don't know if she signed up for something and went willingly, or she actually got into a car accident. We still don't know.
It makes me think that she didn't sign up for something willingly, because when she opens the cupboard to see what outfit she has to wear, she has a reaction to it. Yeah. And it's a negative one. And I think that if she knows what that outfit means, it wouldn't have been a volunteer situation, right? That outfit wouldn't hold meaning. Unless it was this was the last thing I wore before I got kidnapped and tortured. But that told me that this outfit is connected to the trauma in some way.
I agree that it's connected to the trauma, but I think the trauma is her own guilt for willingly.
Yeah, I think I'm Team Erik.
I don't think they kidnapped her. I don't think there was any force. I don't think there was any car accident, because I think those are literally the same clothes. I think she showed up. This is part of her fertility treatments, and maybe she's like, you know what, Mark, I felt so bad watching him dismantle that crib. But I'm going to this company called Lumen, and I'm going to get some IVF treatments or some fertility treatments. They've offered this new protocol where it's basically I have to stay there for a certain amount of time, and I'm not telling Mark about this. But then when she got there, she didn't read the fine print, and they imprisoned her there. But the clothes, that's the first time she's seen those clothes. That was the clothes that she walked in with. That, the clothes that Jeff Probst told her to continue wearing when she jumped off the boat. And then she's now seeing these clothes for the first time and being like, these are the clothes that it represents my lie to my husband, and he thought I was dead this whole time. And I just what I'm about to walk into is a revisiting of that.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that that she, she didn't. I think the comparisons between Beauty and the Beast, there's a reason that they cast this specific actor. Belle in Beauty and the Beast goes willingly at first. She's like, oh, I'll trade my life for my father's life. But that doesn't mean she wants to be a prisoner. It just means she's sort of resigned to this. So if Lumen approached her and said hey, we can not to use the term fix, because that has terrible, but we can sort of help assist you in what you want if you come with us willingly. And she was like, okay. And then 2 years later is when she said to him hey, I want to go home. I want to see Mark. I don't think she would have said that as calmly as she did if she thought there was a chance that he would be no. I think she genuinely thought she could sort of pull the parachute at any point and be hey, I kind of want to go see my husband. But they've sort of kept her doing this for longer than she has realized, because obviously if you're an Innie half the time and an Outie half the time, you don't know. To her, it could be 6 months. She has no idea. But yeah, I do think that she started out by going willingly.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, I don't know. They got to address that in season 3.
I was going to say, potentially a question that will get answered in season 3. Let's talk about it a little bit. Before we talk about broad season 3 questions, I want to talk about character specific season 3 questions, right? We didn't see Irving in this episode. We talked about him a little bit more, some questions that we still have. What do you think the future of Irv is for this show? Do you think that he, we also don't have Bert in this episode. I don't know. Do you think that Bert's storyline is done?
No, I don't. I think they wrote it in a way in case Christopher Walken's I don't want to come back for another season. I hope he does. He's also an older guy, so I think they're just writing it in a way to where Bert doesn't come back.
If he dies.
They doesn't need to. Christopher Walken's
If
in
he
pretty
dies,
good
he
health, I
dies.
think. He's still doing Dune movies. That guy's doing a lot. Irving is the most open book right now. I really don't know but he's going to show us what I think the world of this show outside of Kier, the town of Kier, looks like.
It's just do the right thing. It's just like all of a sudden Irving's like, hey, everything's all bright and colorful. This world is great. Oh crap, race riot.
I think, like, in Lost, they had to show some of them get off the island. And just to show us the world that Lost takes place in. Like, in the present day, not just flashbacks and not just going to Salt's Neck, which is like the second island on Lost. We learned it was 2 islands. But, right? I'm not crazy, right? There's a smaller island.
Right. Like maybe Irving will find something out and then come back for his buddies.
Yes, yeah. He's like,
Dylan would love that.
we have to go back. Irving's going to be standing outside LAX, outside of a train station screaming, we have to
I
go
will
back.
say, I mean, when Mark and Gemma were standing on opposite sides of the door, it did feel like a very much not Penny's boat situation.
yeah.
I was like, oh no, my heart's
Gemma's
breaking
like,
again.
what does that mean? Why are you
putting
that
this-
other woman? I haven't seen that season.
My hope for Miss Huang, who also just got, sent off in the penultimate episode. Like, I want to see her as like an internal reformer at Lumen who can take over the company on the other side of this revolution and actually do good things with it. That's my hope for her.
Oh, Miss Wong. I love her.
Milchick's also in a kind of an interesting position. We had seen him sort of
Yeah.
starting to break throughout the season, but now he's very much on the other side of an army.
Yeah, I admit I was wrong. I thought he would have one redemptive moment, and he didn't. So
For me,
I
he
was
did
wrong.
with those dance moves. You know what I mean?
That is true. That's true. His redemption moment is that he can do stand up with a mannequin that talks.
I think
I'm about to
Milchick's
do a
going to
tight
be...
5 with this guy, you guys.
Imagine season 3 as Milchick as a hostage, a prisoner of war. And this army of O&D, of C&M, of the MDR, led by Dylan and Helly, they are holding him hostage and says, like, give us what we want. They're like a union who's grabbed hold of one of the management positions and says, we're going to kill him unless you give us what we want.
I would not be surprised if season 3 started with several, like 1 or 2. I think the audience would revolt if it was more than 2. Purely Outie episodes. Purely like Milchick's Outie life. Not that Milchick is severed, but like away from the office instead of picking up right where we left off with this Logan's Run ending. Because there are still so many people. We've seen nothing of Natalie. We've seen nothing of the board.
Rickon.
Rickon,
Yeah.
that motherfucker's doing stupid shit. Yeah. Evan?
Lots of things. I mean, before we get to more season 3 predictions and stuff, can we hop around and hit some other questions that we've been getting, super chat or otherwise? Sarah Hatch-Joy and Frank Lewitt, Fraz, both sending in things on different platforms. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for the bits. Asking about the creepy Kier animatronic. I don't think we spent too much time on this one. Clearly, Milchick doesn't have control over it. Is it a manifestation of the board? Sarah asking, who do we think was speaking through it?
It was the voice of Ben Stiller, uncredited. But it was Ben Stiller's voice. I think it was pre-programmed. I don't think it's like the Mr. Potato Head at Disneyland. Outside the Toy
Where
Story.
there's someone in the back room
See,
with a
I
microphone.
don't. I think that
I
that
agree
someone
there.
was speaking into it, which is why when they go off book, Milchick is so unsettled and pissed off.
Well, I think if you read the transcript of their patter, of their routine, it's still set up in punchline.
Okay.
It's just the way that Milchick reads the
Yeah,
punchline
yeah.
that feels like, whoa, there's malice coming out of it. And my theory in the breakdown is that like once that robot detects some malice, he's like, end the routine. Thank you. I'll take it in.
But he gets that one thing in where he's like, "Thank you, Seth," and it's just such a specific that like I was just like,
Maybe
"Oh,
it's
that
Irving.
robot is pissed."
It's Irving because he has that vinegar when he says Seth.
Yes.
No,
yes.
not possible. I do think it's interesting. Ben Stiller does the voice for Kier here, but also did the voice of Kier in season 1 when they complete the file for the first time, and we have
Yeah.
like digital Kier. He says a couple things.
And I believe in the Ortho episode, Milchick is reading the 4th appendix, but then Kier Egan's voice takes over in a VO. I believe that's Ben Stiller's voice.
Yeah.
The character's credited to Mark Geller.
That's
and it's
my
his
that's my
likeness.
interest.
But it
Why not
is
have him come in?
it's definitely Ben Stiller's voice. And I think it has to do with contract stuff. That part of the reason season 2 took so long is because Ben Stiller's going back and forth with Apple about like who's getting paid what. And I think part of it is like Ben Stiller cannot, through SAG-AFTRA, do any kind of acting work for the show. He's an executive producer, he's a director, and I think, but part of that contract is why him and Adam Scott have to do these after show podcasts where they read ad reads in it, which is very weird for A-list talent to do.
I think the best part of this scene to me was that was the Chicago Bulls music.
I was saying, it's weird that the Bulls exist in this universe.
The Alan
As
Parsons
soon
project.
as it kicks in, I was like, oh my God, because first of all, they use that at UCB for Tournament of Nerds for
That's
like
right.
20 years.
Harrison running out there.
Yeah.
Not Harrison, it was,
Justin Donaldson
and
Hal Rudnick. And I was just like, oh my God, 1986 lineup of the Chicago Bulls. Is Michael Jordan about to come out?
Oh my God.
And then it's Milchick, and I was like, even better that they think that they are the greatest sports team in the history of sports, and that they use the Alan Parsons.
And it was truly so funny that Milchick was like a half a beat late for his entrance because he's running from Dylan's room.
Yeah, truly one of
There
the
are no
funniest
Michael
moments
Jordan.
this episode. Shree was saying, perhaps it's Drummond voicing the, or like in the world, right? Maybe it's Drummond doing the voice. Also, lots of questions here about Drummond dying and the consequences of that. Kobe-Wan Kenobi asking if the police will get involved. Travis Martin had sent in a super chat asking what if they pivot to using Severance to make Innie serve prison sentences, aka Mark as serving time for killing Mr. Drummond. Do we think this is something that they'll keep revisiting?
I think there will be exactly as many consequences for Drummond as there were for Grainer.
Right, none.
None. Exactly.
Yeah, I think Lumen only wants to handle things internally.
Yeah.
And they know that Drummond has probably killed people before.
Oh,
or
yeah.
roughed people up.
He was about to kill the most important employee in Lumen history.
Right?
Yeah, that dude is about
yeah.
to get Jimmy Hoffa. We are never going to see him again.
But I do think they will use that to try to control Mark or to manipulate him or say, you killed someone. You will go to jail, unless you cut a deal with us. That's what I think.
100%. Two comments, too, from Super Chats as well. Luke is saying, quote, I sired children in the shadows. LOL, who speaks like that? Yeah, definitely, the Egan vernacular, very fun thing to decode over this season. Ryan Warner sent a super chat earlier. Who the heck are the shadow people? We still didn't get an answer for those shadow people.
They were in the painting.
They were in the painting.
Yeah.
They were in the painting. I think they were community theater people that they put a Craigslist ad out for.
I mean, Shane the Pain even asking, like, isn't it weird that they had randoms in it, like Rickon's dinner party friends, but not Ragabi? How do they know who he's hung out with him, but not her?
No, because Innie Mark has never hung out with Ragabi. The painting is everyone that Innie Mark has ever encountered in his 2 years of life. So that includes the dinner party people, because that's when he was Innie Mark.
And in addition, the Egans or the board or whoever those people were at the very top, and I thought it was interesting.
They were up
Helena was front and center,
which is
not
weird.
Jane.
She's not the current CEO. Yeah.
But also he saw their wax figures, so they are technically people that he knows of.
Yes.
But this is his entire world in one painting.
Now, he did see more people at the book reading party than just the people on the back left there. We see Balf and we see Patton and some of the other people, but literally these were the ones who Innie Mark had FaceTime with, who I think he actually said things to. Rebecca is one of them. Rebecca was the one who he shared a book with. So like these are ones he actually has said things to. But the question remains, how does whoever painted this know that that's who he saw? Which makes me think they must either have some kind of recording, like body cam in his brain that sees what he sees and keeps a transcript of everything he says, or Rickon snitched. Rickon has his deal, and Rickon might have said, like, okay, Natalie, he spoke to this person, this person, this person. Because, we don't know where Rickon is right now, but he's had these sessions with Natalie.
I would imagine that Natalie was like, well, just for the record, who was at this party? And he was like, here are all their personal informations.
Yeah. Lots of questions too about reintegration. Some ones I wanted to highlight here. She was saying, I wonder if Outie Mark had brought up Petey is what introduced him to reintegration, would that ending have differed? Also, Scott Farley and Luke Hughes Bunger sending in some super chats saying, Luke saying, it's felt like reintegration has been a lot of people's end game, even if technically possible. Do you still feel like this is a desirable outcome? And Scott saying, how do we feel about the reintegration plotline having multiple setup scenes with no real payoff?
I don't agree that it has no real payoff.
same.
I think they introduced a new element to the world with reintegration. And if you were to have Mark successfully reintegrate by the end of the show kind of ends. Or it becomes a different show. Part of the appeal of the Severance show is that it is kind of a workplace sci-fi comedy drama. You need to have some version of the show exists where people can exist on the severed floor in every season of it, because if you only have it outside of the severed floor, it's just not the same show anymore. So I think the payoff for it was the debate between Innie and Outie Mark in the cabin this episode. Is they were talking about it, and as they were talking, we, the viewer, and Outie Mark realizes that none of us really know how reintegration works. And that's not going to work as leverage against Innie Mark, or for Innie Mark. It's not enough of a carrot because it's too much of an unknown. So I think, yes, we got to see it through Mark's perspective, but I think it's going to be a long process. And it's going to be something that is always there as a possibility, but it's not a refined solution to this show.
I also think it's a more interesting choice to have Innie Mark have just chosen Helly, and like every once in a while get a flashback of his like lovely badass wife on the outside, and he's like, ugh, starting to feel a little guilty about this now. Like, as opposed to if he was fully integrated, which like doesn't lead to these interesting character moments. I think having Innie Mark see some of Outie Mark's life and then feeling that guilt that he left Outie Mark's wife behind, I think that's much more compelling TV.
I think if they didn't bring up reintegration at all in this finale, I'd agree with you that there was no real payoff. They did make it a big deal this season, but the fact that it became such a charged point of the conversation between Innie and Outie Mark, I think that was enough of a payoff for me.
And I think that the severance or the reintegration procedure stuff was, from a writing perspective, just so that that conversation could happen.
Yeah.
I don't think that they wanted to go further with reintegration. Maybe it'll come back in season 3, but I think like from Outie Mark's perspective, why would he want to reintegrate either? So Innie Mark doesn't want to reintegrate. Now, if I'm Outie Mark, I also don't want to reintegrate.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm throwing my Innie a bone, but like I don't want to get brain surgery if I don't have to. That could end up killing me like it killed Petey when my wife is standing right next to me and I have no reason to go back to Lumen.
Damn, you're leaving your Innie, you're hanging them out to dry?
Hey man, I'm not saying that that's the choice that I would make, but it is.
Not me. I'd live with that guilt forever.
We got some season 3 predictions and theories and stuff like that, so I want to get back to, the moment we were at before. But before we do that, Morgan004 asked earlier, what is the end game with Lumen? What is this all for? We've been talking a lot today. Has your thoughts about Lumen's end goal changed? Any new perspectives on this?
Step 1, write successful TV show. Step 2, I don't know. Step 3,
Lumen's making TV.
profit.
Do you think Lumen's getting into streaming? You think Lumen's losing $1 billion a year on
lost
streaming?
$1 billion in streaming.
Whoa.
They don't care though. They got their AirPods.
Yeah.
That's why
They've
they lost
sent
$1 billion. It's a poppy
That's true.
situation.
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the train of resurrecting Kier Egan and then bottling eternal life for everybody. Like stopping death. Putting a stopper in death. I don't know if that's the case after this finale. It seems like the moment where they were watching Gemma break apart that crib, saying, she feels nothing. It's beautiful. Now I'm kind of feeling like, oh, well, maybe they just want everyone to be numbed and maybe just, maybe they do want to stop aging, but they just want like a bunch of saintly forever people wandering around the earth, bumping into each other, feeling no pain, no trauma.
A utopia.
A utopia, and then saints walking on earth that are just like numb, vacant people. Which is terrifying, but maybe like they also are part. We don't know what the outer world of this show looks like. We've only seen Kier, PE, and we've seen Salt's neck, and everything looks frozen. We could just be in a world where like everything has frozen over. We're in a Snowpiercer universe, and they're just trying to create a survivor colony of like a utopia where like people are just numbed to the trauma. If you watch Paradise, without spoiling Paradise, there is a lot of like social engineering where they want to keep people like bubbly and happy, remembering the good times. And there could be a version of that on this show where it's just, we don't want you to think about the nightmarish past times.
I don't know. The opening of season 3 is going to be Irv on the Corona beach, just like enjoying a beer and crying because he can't be with Bert.
He's waiting. Like Bert's like, what was the name of that place? They watch an ale. I think that Lumen is a lot like the Dharma Initiative. I think that the Dharma Initiative is like, hey man, like let's fucking put some polar bears here, and there's a weird energy, and like, but like when you get down to it, they didn't have like a grand plan. They were basically like a hippie commune that was like, let's do research. But it wasn't far enough along to be like, let's take over the earth. And I think Lumen is the corporate version of Dharma. I think that they are like, yeah, how do we make like You know, how do we take our weird little cult and make workers more efficient and up our bottom line and up the stocks? I don't think I don't think it will turn out that, like, you know, there are zombies beyond the gates or there's like a world, an earth-shattering thing. I think this is like what would happen if Apple got too much power, or if, you know, like Elon Musk got too much power. I think they'd be like, yeah, let's like fuck up some small town lives so that people are doing ether. Let's, you know, no one loves our CEO's daughter. She's a weird bitch. And, you know, like, I think that it's small potatoes.
I mean, I definitely think that there's still a world in which they could be chasing immortality for a couple of reasons. Like, but at the same time,
I agree. I just don't think that they're.
I don't necessarily feel so strongly like I did 4 episodes ago.
Yeah.
I think, right, like Lumen started as a pharmaceutical company, and Cobell inventing Severance is not, you know, like, I don't know if they tasked Cobell to do that. It feels like that was something that, like, she was working on and they stole from her. So, like, is this severance procedure just an extension of a pharmaceutical company? Can you cure your depression? Can you cure your anxiety? Can this be the cure-all that they thought ether could be?
Yeah.
It being severance. And maybe that's just their end goal, is to, like, have a breakthrough drug that makes them so much money, but they also are somewhat of a cult.
Yeah, they're snake oil salesmen who if they discover the secret to immortality, they'll take it. I just don't think they're that organized.
I think they're based on the Sackler family, honestly. Like, I think we've compared them to several other, you know, creepy, culty family businesses. But the Sackler families, as the people behind Purdue Pharma, like, they're the people who basically created the opioid crisis in this country by marketing painkillers as something you need more and more milligrams of per dose. So I think, like, how, if you watch Dope Sick, the way the Sacklers are depicted in Dope Sick are almost exactly the way the Egans are depicted on this show. And I talk about this in the breakdown. Imagine how many people in this country wish they could go to the Sackler family to their face and say, you and your family created hell and you're going to burn in it. Yeah. The Sackler family, they all deserve to burn in hell for what they've done to this country, in my opinion. There's, like, the fact that they've been able to get away without having gone to jail is just insane. Watch Dope Sick. It's an incredible show.
Is this the time I shouldn't reveal that I'm a Sackler Nepo baby?
Yeah. That's how you got this job. Evan has thoughts on hell?
Yeah.
Thoughts on hell. Lots of thoughts on hell. Hey, maybe we're in it. GPZ. All right, so let's get into some season 3 predictions here. I know John was talking about the characters. Maybe we'll get into some broader strokes here. GPZ boy also suggesting a Helly Innie revolution, something we touched on earlier. Tamzal Min saying, I'm assuming season 3 is Helly versus James. He will use his vision of Kier and her to manipulate him into prolonging. She'll use the vision of Kier to manipulate him into prolonging her and Mark's life, potentially. Devin the Water asking simply, will Dylan now start working on himself? And Hassan Ahmad said in a super chat earlier saying, is it possible that this is a series finale for these characters and a new season will give us a different time period or a different team on a new separate floor?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not to that third one. As far as Dylan working on himself, I think men would rather write an angry letter to their Innie than go to therapy.
Is there therapy in Kier PE? Probably not.
Yeah, you're right. It does seem like
You'd have to
if they're
sign up for online therapy.
Like, it's a Scientologist thing that it's like, you don't need therapy, you just need to hold on to these two metal things.
Yeah, I really, I don't think we'll get a reboot just because, you know, there's different ways of watching this show, and a lot of us just watch it for the lore. And we would love to see just a whole season that's just a flashback season with the origins of the Kier family. But for most people who watch this show, they watch it kind of for the vibes. They watch it for the shipping of Adam Scott and the different women on the show. They watch it for the charm of DeTuro and Zach Cherry. And, like, that's the meme side of it. And that's how a lot of people watch the show, and that really is the show. I do think that in terms of what Dylan is, I really do think they could structure the third season to be a war, like a Dog Day afternoon, you know, like a long hostage situation. And Dylan is a revolutionary. Dylan is the lieutenant of this army that Helena is leading, and he is kind of like taking leadership of this group. Like, I almost miss that Irving isn't there because he does have military experience, you know? But maybe he could be like the French and the American Revolution. Like, he's going to bring in the Navy at some point to return to Lumen and help them and help siege the company compound.
Yeah, I can see them doing like a Gen V type of thing where they put out a show called Lumen or something like that, and it is a side show. But like, I think Severance is still going to follow the characters on the severed floor and all that kind of stuff. Apple is kind of doing that with Ted Lasso season 4, where they're keeping a couple of the characters, but like, he's now going to coach a women's team instead of God, what's the team called in
West Ham?
No, that's a real team. Anyways, not important. I would love that. That would be fun. But I don't think that
like
season 3 is that.
I only looked at the headline saying that Apple was $1 billion in the hole for streaming. I believe that for some of their streaming titles, but you got to imagine they still really value their Ted Lasso and their Severance, right?
I think the streaming for Apple is something like 0.04% of their entire business. I think that this has never been about, like, I'm not going to say I don't think they care if they're a streamer, if their shows make money. I just think that right now they're sort of like, hey, let's put out fewer shows that cost an exorbitant amount, get a lot of attention, get a lot of awards, and let's be those guys. Let's be the prestige TV. I don't think that they're concerned with how much money they're making. I think they're concerned with like, hey, who's going to buy the next iPhone? And then there's like, 2% of their workforce that's like, let's think of good TV shows. And the rest of them are like, we have a streaming service? Wow, cool.
Do we think Apple could be in the mix to buy Warner? I know this is a much bigger conversation, but like Puck reported that if Superman underperforms or Superman bombs this summer, that Warner Brothers Discovery is in major financial trouble, and then Discovery would consider selling, or not Discovery, who's the parent company? AT&T. Would consider selling Warner, but it's like, who would be the buyer? I feel like the only person with the money and the interest would be Bezos at Amazon, and they already own MGM. Would the Justice Department block that deal? I don't know.
My understanding from folks that I've talked to is that Apple, their studio division is an absolute mess, and they don't know what they're doing. And so I can see a world in which they want to buy Warner for their library and their structure, right?
But Warner's structure isn't that great either. That's why they're in that mix.
They have a lot, and they have some structure. They have a history. They have a library.
Yeah, they have.
Now, not to get like too weird tech guy about this, but like, Apple's biggest business is selling phones. But more and more, since Tim Cook has become the CEO, they've become a services company, and they're trying to sell you subscriptions to Apple Fitness Plus and to iCloud and to all this kind of stuff. And that part of their business has been growing and growing and growing. And I agree. I think Apple TV is just a loss leader for them, and it's a way to keep people in their ecosystem and to keep people buying things like Apple TVs, but also to like is a bonus for their Apple One subscription, which is just like all of the Apple shit that you can buy. That's how I think Apple looks at this. They're a $1 trillion company. They're the most valuable company in the entire world, stock market wise. And $1 billion to them is nothing, right?
Yeah, agreed.
All right, as we wrap it up here, want to just hit some final shout-outs, some questions. Thank you, Christian Unpronounceable, who hopped in, always gifting 5 subs, even though they can't stick around. Thank you so much. Chris Rosati sending in a super chat. Thank you, Chris. Garbage Man Tricks, has been picking up garbage, literally on the garbage route and watching along, chatting along. Sending in a theory as well with J Kronk 93. So we all agree Helly is pregnant, right? Do we think Helly is pregnant at the end of this?
Can I take this one? Can I take this rant?
Gina had a great point.
Okay, thank you. Here is why Helly is not pregnant. I think the writers are too good for this plot point. And I'm not saying you're an idiot for thinking this might be the case. But no, I'm genuinely not. I realize when I say something seriously, people don't believe me. But Helly is not pregnant because Innie Mark choosing Helly over Gemma, who he tried to Gemma tried to get pregnant with Mark for years. They had so many fertility issues, she could not happen. He has banged Helly now twice. If she is pregnant and he chose her, that is the ickiest plot point in the world, and the writers are too good for that. I don't think everyone will maybe make that connection that is an icky thing, and I don't think it necessarily means like, oh, Mark is choosing the fertile woman over the infertile woman, but trust me when I say the writers in that writer's room are absolutely aware of the fact that he just chose Helly over Gemma. And if Helly is pregnant, that's a really icky, weird look.
It makes their job harder.
Yes, it is. It is not. So she is not pregnant from having sex with him twice after he and his wife tried to get pregnant for years.
That being said, I can see a world in season 3 that Lumen tries to use that lie as something to hold over Mark or Gemma or someone. Like Lumen
I'm not saying it'll never come up again. I'm just saying in this moment there is no way in hell that you have him choose,
because then the hero of your show is a piece of shit. And gross.
Yeah, and even if he doesn't know, even if that's not the intention, it has a lot of gross connotations about the value of a woman and pitting these two women against each other, and also like everything that Gemma went through that was like heartbreaking, and her bonding with Mark over it, and him reacting in like maybe not the best way, but them growing from it. That all becomes like first wife stuff when he's like, nah, look at this lady. She got pregnant after 2 times. Now she's mine.
Yeah, I also just, I think everything you said, Gina, makes perfect sense, and I completely agree with all of it. And in addition to that, I think Lost was very much a show that at its heart was kind of about fertility. Like that was part of the magic of the island of Lost, is that an infertile woman could get pregnant on the island.
Could not get pregnant on the island. Because that they had buried a basically like a nuclear device that aged women's
but
uteruses,
wasn't Jen and Son able to get pregnant because they were on the island and they were having fertility issues? And it was Jen's issues as much as Son's.
Yeah, I think that those are two separate issues. I think it basically like Jin was the one that was infertile. The island healed him. She had not been on the island long enough to have this sort of these infertility problems because of the residual radiation from the leaking nuclear bomb.
But that was part of what Dharma's scientific experiments was testing fertility. That's why What's-Her-Face was brought to the island.
Right.
That was kind of like a theme to it. Not as much with Severance.
Right.
Severance, obviously that was part of Gemma and Mark's backstory. But I don't know if Lumen is as concerned with fertility. That's not like they are they're interested in death and bypassing death and aging and trauma, but not as much with fertility. And I think fertility is a service that they offered Gemma by having the Butterman Clinic, but I don't think their grand agendum of Kier Egan is as much concerned with fertility.
Agreed. Yeah, I think the writers are better than listen, they're not the guys from Game of Thrones, you guys. They actually know how to write female characters. Burn! Hire me on your show.
As we wrap it up here, Jing sending in a super chat saying, speaking of rescuing Gemma like Persephone from hell, they released this episode the day after the spring equinox. Thank you for 10 weeks of chatting. Thank you all for tuning in for all of this coverage the last 10 weeks. This has been a great after show. Thank you guys for hosting it.
Thank you, Evan.
It started with just me and Erik, and now, hey, look at the panel. It's great.
Look at this panel.
Incredible stuff.
A quick programming note here is we are currently having our Easter egg breakdown of this episode edited, but we're going to make an early ad-free version of it available to members of the New Rockstars channel. It'll just be like a few hours early, but it won't have any ads on it, which will be really nice if you prefer your YouTube experience that way. If you become a member of the New Rockstars channel, you'll see that come up in the next hour or so. And then the regular version of the video will be up to public to all people on the New Rockstars channel, members and non-members, up a couple hours later today. That will have ads on it. So just
Diggity dog.
Yep.
Getting it early.
But everyone, thank you so much for joining us. It's been really, really cool being able to hear your theories and take your questions. And we still have more questions than we have answers going into season 3. But fingers crossed we get season 3 sooner than later. But be sure to subscribe to the Breakroom channel here on YouTube and give us a follow on Twitch, where we do these videos live, and follow Breakroom NR on Instagram and Blue Sky and Threads.
Send all your weird messages to Evan.
Yeah, inbox is still open. Just send it. Just keep sending them.
Inbox Evan. You can walk him over to his house.
Yeah.
And Nerdrite.shop just has some amazing, really cool Severance shirts that we've been rocking here. But yeah, thanks everybody. Laters.